Basketball fans, welcome back. So this game by far is one of the most entertaining games I've seen in the Sahara Conference, and it featured Ville de Dakar, the home team, versus Kriol Star. So before we start, I just want to say this. I feel like Ville de Dakar are one of the most overrated teams based on the signings that they made. I feel like this is a team that the games that they are playing should not be close, and majority of the games that they have played, they have been clutch games. So this game that they just played was decided by 3 points, and the final score is 95-92. And if I look at all the previous games that they've played, all of them have been clutch. 70-67 versus the Monastir, 66-63 loss to Kriol Star, 65-64 win against Petro de Luanda, and this one they were not able to beat Kriol Star for the second time. And I can even say Kriol Star is the antidote or the Achilles heel for the Ville de Dakar team, and I must say this team is very overrated. But looking at how the flow of the game was, I felt like Kriol Star came and they just delivered one of the best punches they have seen to the home team. I feel like the home team, Ville de Dakar, were a team that I looked at as that team that can go ahead and even be in the playoffs. But looking at how they played, I feel like I can't rescind my statement or even my premise yet. But I'm going to wait until I look at the final standings when they finish all their games. But looking at how this game panned out, I must say it was very entertaining and I really loved it. So we had our usual suspects balling out. So Patrick McGlynn, this guy was just balling out of his mind. He had a game high 29 points. I've not seen another player score like a near 30-point game. And McGlynn was just there with 29 points. Evan Almeida, he had 22, a solid 22 at that. And he was actually one of the main reasons as to why this game went to overtime, because he had a sledgehammer dunk at the end, or almost at the end of regulation, that tied the game and somewhat forced the game to overtime, because Will Perry airballed that three that he took and didn't make it. And Cameron Robert Park, he had 19. So Evan Almeida, he led with rebounds with 9 total rebounds, and he was tied with Aterma Jock. Aterma Jock had played well, and he had 16 points, 9 boards, and Will Perry was there with his 6 assists. Cameron Robert Parker, he was there with his 9 assists. So this one was a game of the ages, and I must say Kriol Star just had that number against the Ville de Dakar team, and I felt like this game just exposed Ville de Dakar as a team that is the most overrated in BAL, the Sahara Conference in BAL Season 5. And you have very good names in there. You have Aterma Jock, you have Will Perry, you have Abdullahi Haruna, you have Devin Eke, somebody who was silent. I didn't even see him play this game that much. So it was quite interesting. I didn't see him that much. And we had Mark Tagwe, he led ASV Dakar. Even despite the loss, he had a team high 20 points, and Abdullahi Haruna had 15. So even despite the loss, you could see the stars for the team were able to play well. And these games have been very clutch. And one thing I even mentioned, even in the previous video, I was talking about ASV Dakar. I said, this is a team this team has to be very careful, especially when it comes down to the points they concede during the game, because even despite this loss, they have a very good point differential in there, and their record is 2-2. And Kriol Star also have a record of 2-2. So all the teams right now have a record of 2-2. And with this performance, with this 90-point performance, I can say by far this is the highest that Ville de Dakar have scored and the highest they have conceded. And this one puts them in a position where they will not be, shafted when it comes to point differential, because even in a previous video when I mentioned it, I said, the worst position that Ville de Dakar would want to be at is having not a good point differential, subsequently leading them to getting knocked out of the BAL playoff contention or the BAL championship contention, which is something that they're gearing towards. All those major signings that they made, They were not just to get them to the playoffs, but to go ahead and win it all. But Kriol Star are not backing down. And that's something that I really noticed, because shooting-wise, this team, they shot 42% from the field and 52% from the 2-point field goals. And from downtown, they were 12 of 37, that's 32%. And from the line, they were 79%. So you can see this is a team that knew that every single shot that they needed to take counted. And if you look at the Ville Dakar team, they shot 39% from the field, 45% on 2-point field goals, and 34% from downtown, and 73% from the line. So they didn't shoot poorly like that, but I can say with the talent that they have, they should have shot better from the field. They should have shot at least 45%. So that's something that's very concerning. But all in all, even despite that shooting, they were able to out-rebound the Kriol Star team. And Ville Dakar team, they out-rebounded them by a lot. That's 58 rebounds to Kriol Star's 34. And the Ville Dakar team made Kriol Star look small, especially when it came to the rebounds and the assists. They dished the rock pretty well. And they had 2 blocks in there. And I can even say Altera Majok was the difference. I mean, at some point late in the fourth, you saw the man getting slapped in the face. And I don't know why they didn't rule it as a sportsman-like foul. So, yeah, it is what it is. So, this matchup was the best. I was glued all through. I was just invested all through. The Ville Dakar team did not disappoint. They started off very strong, and they had a 23-point first scorer to Kriol Star's 18, and it was just neck and neck all through. There were no signs of a blowout because of how high octane offense, both offense and defense was. Because there are a couple of games that I saw, even the previous game that the Ville Dakar played, when they played against the Petro de Luanda team, you could see they didn't shoot well from the field, and the game was a low-scoring game and only decided by 1 point. And if you look at this one, there was scoring productivity coming from both sides, and you could see the scoring was happening per possession, almost per possession. But the main difference was how clutch Kriol Star were and how they, were scoring down the stretch. And even when this game went to the second half, there was no major dip in their performances for both teams. But in the final minutes of overtime, you could see Kriol Star was so determined. It was just who wanted it more. Because at some point I felt like Ville Dakar team just let this game go in the overtime period, because every single thing that they threw, Kriol Star had an answer for it, and especially McGlynn, Ivan Almeida. These guys came out and balled out, and this was something that the Ville Dakar team did not want. They felt like this team might just lie down and die for them in overtime, and kind of the shots they needed to take, they took them, but still it wasn't enough. And Kriol Star just had the day in this one. So I was very excited. This was a nail biter, I must say. When I was watching this game live, the game was so entertaining in the second half and on the overtime period, because anything could have just happened. And I'm so happy to see this type of scoring, especially when it comes to BAL teams, because when I've watched multiple games, especially in the Sahara Conference, I've not seen a team go to overtime. So in the Sahara Conference, in BAL Season 5, this is the first team to go to overtime. And you could see all the teams, all the teams just brought their A game. I mean, there was no point in time where you could just say this team is just weak. All the teams are just, they're just throwing it in there, and they're just going ahead and challenging. It was not as one-sided as the way we saw it in the in the Kalahari Conference. I mean, Sahara Conference is always competitive. Even in BAL season 3, you could see in the Sahara Conference, all the teams had tie record, and Petro de Luanda, US Monastir, AS Ville Dakar, and Kriol Star all have tie records. And previously, even in posts that were made when I was checking out BAL social media, you could see AS Ville de Dakar had the high point differential. It didn't have a high point differential, but they had a winning record at that time. But with this loss, it has changed everything, because now AS Ville de Dakar has fallen into the third place. Kriol Star at fourth. Petro de Luanda, the defending champions, are at the one spot, and USM are the 2 spots. So, and all the teams have a tie record of 2-2. So it's anyone's playoff spot to take, and it's not as defined as the way we saw Al Ittihad and River Hoopers do it in the Kalahari Conference. So this is an exciting one. It's a nail biter, and it can be anyone's. BAL playoff spot. It's not set in stone, and one team has to miss it. And all the teams, I can say, are solid, all of them. And I've not seen any weak spot in any of these 4 teams. Petro de Luanda, US Monastir, Ville, Dakar, and Kriol Star have come out and shown that, anything can happen. And all of them have a tie record. The only thing is separating them is the point differential. And the reason as to why Petro de Luanda are on top right now is because of that game against Kriol Star. When they beat Kriol Star 103-74, it has put them up in high point differential, and all of their games were high scoring. The reason as to why the Ville Dakar team are not at the top the way they were is because of the games that they played. They conceded the most points, and they were not able to have good. They didn't score as much, and the point differential is what has led them to fall to the third spot. All the teams have only 2 games left, and after the 2 games, it will decide who's gonna go to the BAL playoffs, and this one can even be decided by the last game. So, heading into like the 4th, 5th games in the Kalahari Conference, I like comparing because that's the conference that came and went. You could see the playoff clinching was already decided in the 4th and 5th games. And when Al Ittihad went 4-0 and 5-0, we could just see they clinched it, and the River Hoopers clinched it when they played their 6th. As they were going into their 6th game, they already clinched the playoff spot. So this one might be decided by the last game, and only 4 games left. There's so much basketball to see, and I was very excited. So anything can happen. I mean, this one is very shocking, and I must say this might be the best, BAL conference you have seen in a while. And we're waiting on to see what the Nile Conference is going to give us. But, hey, they will cross that bridge when you get there. But now, all these 4 teams are just gunning for that BAL playoff spot. And the 1 and 2. No team wants to be in number 3 because they don't want to get out. And number 4, no teams want to be in number 4 because if they're the 4th place team, there's a high likelihood they're not going to make it. So it will be such a shame to see Ville de Dakar, the home team, not make it to the BAL playoffs, despite the fact that they made those key signings like that. So it is what it is. So this is just awesome. I'm excited, and I don't know what you guys think about this, because this is as good as BAL gets, and with such games, they just bring out the best in both teams. So it is what it is. So do drop me a comment down in the comment section down below on what you think about this. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace out.